Heitzel, and I want to welcome you to the coolest and most informative podcast in Westfield, Indiana. What's Up Westfield? What's Up Westfield is a local chat fest to dig deep into politics, development, who's doing what, and anything else we can fit into 45 minutes of fun behind a microphone. If you have topics or interest in being an amazing guest, please reach out to us, and we would love to hear your ideas. So today we're here at Westfield, Washington Public Library, and my special guest has had no problem voicing his opinion, as well as gaining the attention of many locals looking for additional political options. I'd like to welcome Donald Rainwater, the Libertarian Candidate for Mayor of Westfield. Welcome.
Good morning, Kurt. Thank you for having me.
Is that correct? Libertarian? Is that the right way?
That is correct.
Okay. Tell me what libertarian is real quick.
Well, I think in a nutshell, a libertarian is someone who believes that government should be as small as possible, should only do the things that are absolutely necessary to provide the shared services that a community, regardless of local, state, or federal in nature, requires, and then stays out of your business.
Okay. Is that like if I were to Google libertarian, is that similar to what it would say?
I think so.
Like in a nutshell?
Certainly, I think so.
I've actually never looked that up. I don't even think I've looked up any of the parties by definition.
I understand. Most people have it.
I identify one person with each one.
Right.
And, they have a positive or negative connotation with it. So
Certainly. No, and I think most people are like that.
Yeah, that's probably pretty general. Okay, and I appreciate you doing this with me. As I've told you, we've met early on when you were running for council. Yeah. Correct? And then you decided to run for mayor. And I appreciate that, and I respect you, and I've followed you, and as a social media guy, I've enjoyed watching your story, if anything, your progress, and the way you've put yourself out there. Geesh,
okay,
more than anybody, and I appreciate it. I respect it. It's cool how you've done it.
Well,
so
thank you.
I take the politics out. It's awesome. So if everyone could not be political, everyone's kind of doing a really cool job of this stuff, and I love it. So
certainly. Yeah.
In a few minutes, can you tell me about yourself? Where were you born? Where'd you go to school?
Sure.
What's your experience?
I'll give you the nickel tour.
Okay, cool.
Because it's probably not worth much more than that.
I got a dime.
I was born on the east side of Indianapolis.
Okay.
My father was a United Auto worker, worked at the Ford plant over on English Avenue for 40 years. He's from Somerset, Kentucky, so occasionally you might hear a little twang come out of me.
Not a bit.
That was obviously learned behavior.
Uh-huh.
My mother was from here. They met here. So I grew up on the east side of town. Spent a little time in Greenfield from 4th to 6th grade. Then Dad got tired of driving 20 miles back and forth to work, moved back into Indianapolis. Okay. Graduated from Warren Central High School in 1981. Before we were good at football.
That was pre-football.
That's right. That's when we stunk. And after graduation, I went and spent a semester at Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, cool.
My dad got laid off during the month of December. We didn't have the money for me to go back. So I hung out for a few months and decided that I really didn't want to live at home anymore. And I went and joined the United States Navy as an enlisted man.
What year was that you went into the Navy?
August of 83.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's not right. That's August of 82. Pardon me.
Okay. We marked you down as your first lie.
There you go.
When we
and that's not a lie. That's a mistake. I make lots of mistakes. I probably make more mistakes before 9 o'clock than most people do all day.
That's awesome. I love it. What was, and I don't want to get too far off on this, what was the military atmosphere or whatever in 1982?
I think it was what people traditionally thought of as the military environment. When I went to basic training, they wanted to break you down so that you would be a team player and not be as much of an individual. And I think that was very much, that was the kind of the sunrise of the Reagan administration.
Was there conflict at that time?
There was conflict in Beirut.
Okay. So, but people weren't getting drafted, or people weren't.
No, we haven't had a draft since Vietnam.
People and people weren't. It wasn't like the last 20 years where.
Well, so that's a good question, and I think that the honest answer to that is it was,
okay,
but it wasn't as widely publicized.
Oh, we didn't see it as much.
For example, I was on an oiler, a replenishment ship, in the Mediterranean on a Mediterranean cruise, sitting off the coast of Beirut on October 23rd of 1983. When a truck full of explosives blew up the Marine barracks there in Beirut. There were, I believe, 230 some members of the United States military who were basically murdered in their sleep.
Oh, wow.
And that was a big deal.
Okay.
Of course, we had the Grenada situation with the college students. I think there were a lot of military actions going on. But here again, they didn't get the type of publicity that they get now.
So, in my head, because I have no idea what draft means, right? You do, because you were a kid probably when stuff like that was going on. My dad talks about his missing the draft,
Right.
whatever. To me, though, signing up for military means you go to war today, in my head. And that's probably wrong, but to me, everyone that signed up went to where did everybody go?
Afghanistan, Iraq, certainly.
And so you didn't have that feeling. Did you have that feeling?
No, not at all.
Okay.
To be honest with you, when I enlisted, it really didn't. I went through boot camp. I went through what they call in the Navy A school, where I learned my trade.
Okay.
I actually went to submarine school, was unfortunately medically disqualified with a week and a half left in submarine school. Got to my first ship on New Year's Eve, December 31st of 82.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I actually walked down the pier and looked up that I realized, oh, I'm going to be on a ship.
How old were you?
I was 19.
19.
Well, let's see. Yeah, I had just turned 19.
Oh my gosh. I think I said I was in a lot of ship when I was 19.
Yes,
so
yes.
I was in a lot of ship.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what else? You went to, what did you learn there?
So I was a yeoman. I was in administration. I worked in the ship's office. For part of the time, I was the ship's captain's personal secretary. Handled a lot of correspondence, a lot of ship's operating procedure, documentation, did officer evaluations, typed them up, didn't actually evaluate the officers. That was somebody else's job.
Thank goodness. Right?
Yes. But spent 8 years in the Navy. Got out in 1990. Did a variety of things. I got my basic computer skills while I was in the Navy. Got out. Was able to get a job teaching computers at a vocational college in Indianapolis. Actually did that in a couple of places. Then got into teaching applications courses for a company called New Horizons Computer Learning Center in Carmel. That was about 97.
Was that early for that stuff? Or was that?
No,
okay.
I don't think it was early at all.
Okay.
But they gave me the opportunity to teach, first learn programming, and then teach it. And so that's how I kind of got into what I'm doing today, which is software engineering.
Is programming the same as coding?
It is.
Okay. Coding's the cool word now, right?
I guess it depends on who you are. I actually had exactly. I had a project manager a few years ago. We were having a conversation. and I expressed an opinion about a business process, and he said, well, you're just a coder. And I said, well, in that case, I'll just go back to my cubicle, and you guys can figure this out on your own. No, we need your help. We need your, okay. So I'm, it's like the old, you're just a pretty face.
Yeah, which I hear
right. I'll bet you do.
Yeah, thank goodness I have these looks. Okay, so you had that kind of career, you worked in that space your entire career?
I mean, I actually managed a rent-to-own store for a while on the Lower East Side of Indianapolis. Not the best neighborhood.
No, probably a busy store though.
It was a very busy store. Yes. It was actually down at the corner of 10th and Rural.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that area.
Familiar with that area.
I think a lot of people refer to that as the swamp.
What is at 10th and Rural today? When was the last time you were there?
Every once in a while I like to drive down through there just to see, and the Village Pantry still sits on the corner.
Okay. Is that where the antique stores are?
I think that's a little further east.
Is it?
A little bit further east.
10th and Rural. Okay.
It's not the neighborhood you would take your kids to. But.
No, but I go there to get drugs.
I see. I see.
You wanted to know about that, didn't
you?
We got to move past that.
Let's talk about your purchasing habits.
My drugs, my illegal guns, all that stuff. Okay. We digressed. All right, family. You got a
now,
family.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You said something about illegal guns, and based on my understanding of the Second Amendment, there's no such thing.
Well, it's the ones with the serial codes.
Serial
numbers scratched off, and
I see.
We've cleaned them and washed them.
Understand.
But we don't know anything about that.
Not that there's anything wrong.
No,
with
there's not. You got to be pretty clean to make jokes like that.
That's right.
And record it. So.
Yes.
All right, family.
I do have a family.
Okay.
I have my wife Leslie and I met about 12 years ago. I have been married prior to that, and I have a couple of adult children that are in the 31-year-old range. My wife has 3 adult children, and then we have a daughter together, Olivia, who's 10.
Awesome.
And she goes to school here in the Westfield school system. And
she's in 5th grade, probably. Is that right?
That is correct.
4th, 5th
yeah,
grade.
she's.
Okay, so are you ready for the one main question?
Sure.
That I can't figure out.
Sure, go right ahead.
Why would anyone want to run to be the mayor of a city?
Okay, I think that's a great question. And I think there's the Britannica Encyclopedia answer to that, and we won't go into that today. No.
Yeah, I want Donald Rainwater, why he wants to be a mayor of a city.
Okay, so that's a good question, and here's the short answer.
Okay.
I believe that Westfield is an awesome place.
I agree with you.
I think that there are some awesome people here.
I agree with you.
I think that we have a division in a couple of groups of awesome people, and that the communication between those groups and their ability to come together collaboratively in a cohesive way to work together to build the type of Westfield that everyone can be happy with has suffered.
So let me back you up on that. Tell me what those groups are.
Well, I think there are.
Are you talking like the residents and then our politicians? Are you talking?
No, I think it goes a little bit different than that.
Okay.
I think what we have a group of people who, here again to kind of net it out, are looking to build a community similar to Carmel and Fishers. I think we have another group of people who would like to see us build a community more in the model of Zionsville and Noblesville. And I don't think the two communicate well.
They don't.
And I think
You're
that
right.
there is I think the onus is on government. If we have a government of, by, and for the people,
Mm-hmm.
I think the onus is on the government to be as transparent and communicative
Mm-hmm.
as possible.
So are you saying that you see the ability for the government to have a stronger role in bringing those two opinions together and making the right decision?
Yes.
Okay. Because I agree with you on, well, I'm not saying I disagree on anything. I agree with you on the communication part. One of the reasons I interviewed or did a podcast with Judy Shep a couple of weeks ago is because Judy is she's strong on her opinion.
Yes.
And if you see her on social media, which is the only way we all communicate anymore, it's stop growth. If you were to just read her stuff and not know her and not read into it and not understand her, it's stop growth. Everything's historic. Blech. Honestly, that's not truly who she is.
No.
And so
no,
I appreciated that she does. She's not against growth.
No.
And she's not against stuff happening, but she has her heart in it and she's passionate about it being done wisely.
Right.
And so to me, that's not a stop growth. I have an opinion, I care,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, it's just one person, yes.
Right.
But there's a lot of one people out there. And most of us share probably a more common opinion on this stuff than we imagine.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And in my opinion, what we have are, we live in a society today where you're expected to take an extreme
Mm-hmm.
position
Yeah.
on everything.
Yeah.
And, we see it very clearly in our national politics.
Absolutely.
And I think it has permeated down into local issues as well. If I say that I don't like the way that we are financially managing Grand Park, then what people hear is, oh, you don't like Grand Park.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case at all.
That's
I think
right.
it's an awesome facility.
Do you think social media has made our communication worse?
No, actually I don't. I think in my opinion, what has made our communication worse is the fact that we have over time been exposed to, whether it be through the media or through our political tribes,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, the concept that if you're not 100% on board with me,
Mm-hmm.
then you're against me.
Yeah, and we can't be friends and we can't
Right.
ever agree on anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people in the past that I've had disagreements with,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had what we'll call spirited discussions. And then after work, we go and shoot pool and drink a beer.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And to me, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
If you disagree about something, disagree, come together, collaborate, figure out where the common ground is,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's over.
Yeah, move on.
Don't, this whole idea of carrying a grudge or because you disagree with a policy or, pardon me, if you disagree with something that I say or do, that somehow then we have to be mortal enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and I think it's going to continue that way though, because
I do too.
we have our heels in the ground at this point, and it's hard to back off that.
And I think in a lot of ways that somebody's got to be the first one to say, let's come together,
Mm-hmm.
have a cup of coffee and some donut holes, and let's talk.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't
donut
either.
holes.
Yeah.
Jeez, you let the cat out. Okay. So all right. So you want to be mayor because, and I will dumb this thing down because
Sure.
it's just me. You want to be mayor because you think there's a disconnect between all the sides. You think there's some transparency that could be more important or better done.
Right.
Give me specifics what you mean by better transparency.
Okay, so let me give you a practical example.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading through some of the ordinances on economic development here in Westfield, and one of the ordinances specifies that
Who does that?
somebody who's running for mayor.
Well, I appreciate that, so you know.
A geeky nerd
Uh-huh.
who wants to be as well informed as possible.
I commend you for that.
I've spent a lot of time in my youth running my mouth. I like the phrase, "Don't let your elephant mouth overload your hummingbird ass."
Okay.
And I definitely can have an elephant mouth. So I want to make sure that
That's awesome.
I have some idea of what I'm doing before I do it. But I was reading this, and it said that quarterly, the Economic Development Department is supposed to publish a debt report and provide it to the city council on the status of the city's debt. If you go to the city website and you go to the document portal and you look for that, you can't find it.
Okay.
Now, they will tell you that, we've got OpenGov. If you go to the OpenGov site and you look for that documentation on that quarterly debt report, you can't find it. So people automatically assume, if I can't find it, it's not there. If it's not there, why not?
Do you think, is it there somewhere?
I don't know.
Okay, so you've never been able to find it. So when you call the city, and I don't know if you've done this, and say, hey, where's this report? What is the response?
I have not called the city.
Okay. And so to me, because I'd imagine if it's a law, the city is abiding by it. And so to me, I wonder if it is out there and it's just poorly located.
And that's transparency, my friend.
Okay, so you're thinking, you know what, I imagine they're not hiding things.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I can't say, are they hiding things? Are they have they become complacent?
Yeah.
And decided, this isn't a big deal. Nobody really asks for it, so we don't need to do it. Another example is with the Civilian Fire Merit Board. I went out and looked, and they hadn't issued any new meetings minutes from the past couple of years. And so I wondered aloud, and by aloud I mean on Facebook.
Yeah, that's fair.
How often do they meet? Have they met and not published their? So on September 30th, they published onto the city website meeting minutes from 2018 and then June of 2019.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that they had those and had just forgotten to put them out. And here again, I will be very honest and tell you that as a community, if we don't hold our city government responsible to keep that information flowing, then part of the problem is us.
I wonder if and I don't pay attention to other municipalities very closely, and that's just because why would I?
Right, because you don't live there.
Yeah, I'm bored enough by my own, right? That why would I pay? So you're
looking for properties to sell. You don't have time to look up other municipalities.
That's all I want is the properties,
right? Yeah.
That's right. But do you think that do you think other communities have figured out a more streamlined way of communicating and more transparency? Do you think anybody's good at it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have ideas. And here again.
Which doesn't mean it's okay, but do you think that's just the standard, that they're just bad at it?
Sure.
They're just
I think
good
that's
at it.
probably a fair possible assumption. But now, and maybe here's a place where my background has my perception a little out of whack. As a software engineer, I've been doing data analysis and building reporting dashboards for the last 20 years.
Okay.
So I have a certain expectation of, if the data exists, here's how you make it available
Mm-hmm.
to people.
You understand it more technically than most people do.
Right. I hope.
Yeah.
It's
You get paid to do it.
Right. And see another area of that I look at. I was looking this morning at all of the available PDFs for permits and applications with the city. And as I was looking at that, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to bring city services forward.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of expecting people to download this PDF,
Mm-hmm.
print it out, fill it out, and then send it in, why not have a portal where people can say, I want to apply for a permit for this, and they just be able to do it online,
Mm-hmm.
pay their $25 for their permit or whatever online, and then have it processed and have that all be more, I'd love to see it where you could do it on your phone.
Yeah.
And I think
government thing though, that everything's so behind.
I understand that.
It? But it doesn't mean it's okay. It's almost like it's expected for it to be 3 generations behind in how things are processed.
Well, and yeah, but does it have to be that way?
No,
should it be that way?
I 100% agree with you that things should be totally automated. I would have more probably manpower in that than older way things are. I mean,
sure.
I would have. That would be a part of a government I would ramp up to make it easier for my community to.
Sure, because we have an informatics department here in Westfield.
Mm-hmm.
So the foundation is obviously already there, or should be, in order to provide that. Now, I believe that the main purpose of the municipal government, the city government, is to provide the shared services, and I'll take that a step further and say shared services and products that the community needs. And those shared services are things that's where our focus should be. And so making it easier for people in the community to request a building permit or
do you know that it can't be done online?
No. That building permits cannot be done online.
Can they be done from the state level online?
I don't know. Are you aware?
I'm trying to think because I've been through this
discussion before.
I know it's my business, and I should know this right offhand. But I feel like something is the state one, or maybe the Homeland Security one is done online, and not the local one's done online. But I don't know.
And so, see here again, those are things we need to delve into.
I should know that.
But there are. I'll use a technical term here. There's a big old honking list of permits and applications on the site, on the city site, that I feel like there could be a more
Can I share a specific one with you?
Sure.
Raised trash cans.
Oh yeah, let's talk about raised.
My wife hands me a little handwritten flyer every week that says we need to replace our toter because it's so smashed up. And to do it, you call this number and wait on hold. And I will never replace my toter. I've even seen the poor trash guy stomps around mad that he's having to handle this cracked up toter.
I gotcha.
But for me to stop and make a phone call and do it, it's never going to happen.
Right.
If there was a website, a link.
If there were an app for your phone,
or a
City of Westfield app where you could say, I need a new toter.
I'd pay for one. I'd pay for a new one.
You already are. It's called taxes.
That's right.
Friend.
I would pay a replacement fee to not have to call. But that's me being lazy, but that's just how things are done nowadays.
Well, but it is. And here again, I think it's important, especially at the local level. If we can't improve government at the local level, then what hope do we have of cascading that up? Because, they say, all politics are local, right? Yeah. And that's an old cliche, but it holds some truth. If we can't make changes locally, then we're never going to hope to make changes at the state level or even at the county level.
Okay. You've put yourself out there on a couple of topics.
Okay.
And I went through the other day when you kindly agreed to do this. I went through your Facebook pages
to find stuff you could.
I wanted some specific ones that you had put yourself out there on, and I want you to go in detail about. I want to talk about them.
I'll do the best I can.
And I know that one of the things I do like about your campaign is you don't think you have all the answers.
Oh, absolutely not.
But you are taking the time to learn. And I will say, I'm not here buttering you up because you can't get my vote.
I understand, yes.
But you're at every meeting now. And you're at all the council meetings. I see you or a lot of them.
I try to be I'm trying to learn as much and understand as much of what's going on as I possibly can. I think it would be foolish for me to say, vote for me for mayor. I've never been to a city council meeting. I've never read an ordinance. I don't know anything about anything, but vote for me.
But that's how silly. That's how the past candidates, challengers, whatever, have been. Well, and I have always blown them off because typically they're just keyboard warriors. They're just
I understand.
They could afford some signs and they got someone behind them with a little money.
Yeah.
But then they get into the conversation and they're way out of their lane.
Right.
And so I appreciate that you're at those things and you're still, Mike Johns, I see him at a lot of meetings, but you're still one of the few running for office. There's only a few usually that have actually engaged.
Right.
And I think that's important. So, now that I'm done saying nice things to you, all right, here's the 3 things I want to talk to you about.
All right.
First of all, I want you to tell me, because I don't like the school operating referendums.
Right.
Because I probably don't understand them enough. I think for some reason I can't figure out where the money goes that's already there. I want to know how you see us to be able to operate without a school operating referendum.
Okay.
And I know we can't get into specifics because we could, it's nerd info at some level, but I would like to hear the basics, like a general theory that could help correct that.
Sure. So let me first say, none of this gets done overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it sounds like I'm just going to snap my fingers and make this happen, that's not the way that works at all. And I'm well aware of that.
Well, then we can end this now.
Yeah, there you go. So, but here in a kind of a nutshell is what I have come to understand based on what has been explained to me and what I've been able to get. Obviously, first of all, let me say that people will tell you that the property taxes in Indiana are capped at 1%. That is a misnomer. The 1% tax cap is not a true tax cap because your assessed value can go up every year, which means you pay more in property taxes. It's 1% of your assessed value. So your property taxes continue to go up as your assessed value goes up. Now, we have decided in Westfield, as you pointed out, as most communities have, most municipalities are using tax increment financing as a debt payment mechanism.
Sure.
So tax increment financing says that when we create this area, this district of tax increment financing, that we're going to baseline the assessed value at that time. And any property taxes collected on that base assessed value are going to go to the taxing authorities, where they normally go. One of those is the school district.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the largest percentage of your property taxes go to the school district.
Yeah, I saw the pie chart.
Right. Yeah. On OpenGov, I'll bet.
I saw it at the state of the schools.
Okay.
Or no, you know what? The pie chart at the state of the city, the budget, that really put out there the big space the schools get.
Yes. So, but now here's the caveat: in a non-TIF district scenario, as the assessed values go up, then the money that the school gets goes up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a TIF district, the difference, and they call it an increment,
Mm-hmm.
in that base value and the additional value, that money gets peeled off
Mm-hmm.
to go into the Economic Development Fund.
Yes.
So when that happens, that means that as your school population grows and as your school's needs grow, their property tax doesn't grow at the same rate as the assessed value grows.
Because in those TIF districts, it's stuck at a certain number.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, from what I understand, and I haven't actually sat down to calculate the metric,
Mm-hmm.
But what I've heard people say is that approximately 60% of the Westfield city limits is under TIF district,
Mm-hmm.
which means that the amount that the schools get stay fairly flat
Mm-hmm.
while the assessed value continues to go up.
Mm-hmm.
That means that that money is going to pay for economic development and not.
So would
the
you
schools.
stop TIFing?
What I would do, first of all, I would sit down with a group of people.
Uh-huh.
I want to bring a bunch of people who understand municipal financial issues
Mm-hmm.
together, preferably a group of people who have differing perspectives,
Yep.
differing opinions,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to sit down and say, how do we get rid of our city's debt?
Uh-huh.
How do we fund the things we need to fund without utilizing TIF districts?
Okay.
Because one of the things that we are kind of, if you want to say, behind the eight ball with,
Mm-hmm.
is that according to state of Indiana statute, as long as we have this bond debt that has been tied to these TIF districts,
Mm-hmm.
we cannot get rid of the TIF districts until the debt's paid off.
Okay.
So we need to figure out how to pay off the debt.
So we could start over, kind of.
Yes.
We have a clean slate.
Exactly.
So, are you against using TIF for economic development? Yes or no, or do you?
Well, first of all, here again, I don't think there's any such thing as a flat yes or
Okay,
no.
good.
Now, I tell people all the time I'm a black and white guy.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of gray
Uh-huh.
in a lot of areas. But I will say that from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
tax increment financing was designed to help economically depressed areas. I will use the city of Anderson as a
Mhm.
great example. They were a flourishing community until the auto industry started to
Leave.
suffer, and they left.
Uh-huh.
And now they have some real economic challenges in
Mhm.
Anderson. Kokomo was an area similar to
Mhm.
that. There are areas in Indianapolis where manufacturing left and it really hurt
Mhm.
economically. And TIF was designed to give them a mechanism to rebuild.
Mm-hmm. Because they had to force some activity.
Right. I have kind of an ethical dilemma with using tax increment financing that was designed to help those who are economically
Mm-hmm.
disadvantaged
Mm-hmm.
in the wealthiest county in the state.
So let me add, and because we use TIF money, we use all kinds of stuff to spawn development. I mean, look at Carmel. It is
Right.
based on a city, and look at every community that's really growing in Hamilton County. The municipality is backing development.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, I mean, to a point where it's actually, if you're a part of that deal, it's a pretty sweet deal.
Sure.
Are you against that?
Am I against the artificial manipulation of the economy? I am, and I am, and let me say, here's why.
Yeah.
Back in 2008, and I'm sure this affected you.
That's when I started my company.
Okay, so you you saw the effects of the economic downturn, of the housing bubble bursting.
Call my wife sometime and ask her about that. Yeah,
right. So, you know, the fear that I have, and I believe it's a legitimate one, is that we are utilizing all these mechanisms to artificially accelerate what would be natural organic growth. And that in doing so, what we're really doing is blowing more air into the bubble that will eventually burst again. And if we are not prepared in a common sense, conservative, fiscal way, then when the bubble bursts, it will economically damage Westfield.
So is your thought, just leave it alone, and if private companies can afford to develop and the market's there, they'll do it. If it's not there, it's not time yet, so why blow air into the bubble? Is that what your kind of thought process is?
I don't think it's...
And I'll be specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
If an apartment complex was coming to Westfield and they said, hey, we need $10 million to offset the land costs and the construction costs because we want to build a really sweet building downtown Westfield, would you be against that?
I think I would.
In general, would you be
I think I would, and here's why. If you came to the city of Westfield and said, look, I want to build, I want to build a $2 million home on 50 acres out here just outside the city limits. But I need the money up front to do that. And I need some tax breaks. They'd look at you like you were crazy. So if the taxpayers of Westfield shouldn't do that for you as an individual, why should they do it for a developer just because the developer says, oh, I'm going to bring this many people, blah, 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 blah. Because here again, what I think we've seen in the past is that promises of, if you build it, they will come, only happen in the movies.
Well, then let's talk about Grant Park.
Okay.
Would you sell Grant Park?
If somebody were willing to pay enough for it to pay off the debt that the taxpayers currently have, and they could run it in a way that it could be profitable for them, or if they were a nonprofit, if they could keep it going, yes, absolutely.
So do you feel like Grand Park has not been what we expected, as if you build it, they will come?
I believe so. I believe that from what I have read and what I have been told by people, the expectations, I won't say promises, I'll say expectations of development around it and of its own self-sufficiency have not come to fruition.
And I agree with you on that. That's one thing that I struggle with, because I am 100% was for Grand Park. I've got a lot of time in it. I actually built a little marketing thing called Grand Park Properties at one point, which that name was stolen, by the way. Look it up.
Who'd you steal it from?
No, it was stolen from me.
It was stolen from you. Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I dropped the ball on that. But like, because I'm adamant that 32 improvement, all the development along 32 would have happened with 31, just because it's such an awesome intersection.
And you and I've talked about that before, and I think that there's a definite validity to that. I also, when people say, oh, but Grand Park has brought $700 million in new development, I say, okay, but how much of that $700 million goes to pay off the debt? Is that new development included tax abatements for those companies? Does that new development, and I hate to say it this way because it sounds like pandering and it's not meant to be, But the reality is that how much of that $700 million has put food on a single mom's table here in Westfield? How much of that $700 million is helping a small business owner here in Westfield grow their small business? Show me the link. Show me the causality. Show me where this supposed new development helps the individual taxpayer who's paying the taxes that pay for the bond payment and the operating expenses for Grand Park.
So you don't see it as that. Okay, we've got it's a stink bug. If it's so they build this
I'm sorry, what'd you call me?
There's actually a stink bug on the table,
Uh-oh.
and I'm scared of them. So if I was, to me, I see. Here's my other to be the other side of that coin. The Grand Park is a dispenser, and it brings a whole bunch of people here and exposure. And is it the government's job to create the opportunity for the locals? So I see Grand Park as, well, if I can sell more real estate, or why don't I could chase sports related users, or I could think traffic counts and try to sell based on that. The mom who needs food on the table, it could create a waitressing job, or it can create a office job. Or, to me, is that not enough for what that's created? Is that not what that's trying to create? When you say, how has it helped the locality, is that not enough?
Well, so here's the way I envision that.
Mm-hmm.
When the cost to the taxpayer
Mm-hmm.
is more than the benefit the taxpayer gets back,
Mm-hmm.
We call that a negative net result,
Yeah.
right? And right now, the last comment that I saw that the city administration made was that the TIF districts would cover Grand Park's debt payment by 2023.
Okay.
That's 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's already been in existence for 5 years. And so when the debt payment can't be covered by the TIF money, then it has to come out of local income tax. When that money has to come out of local income tax, then that's money that can't go here again to the schools, to the fire department, to the police department, to your public works and your roads. Something has to not get paid for in order to cover that debt.
So if there was a buyer for it today and it was a good deal, you think it'd be smart to sell it?
I do.
Okay.
Now, I could be wrong. And what I would want is, I would want people to sit down and show me, explain to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some really smart people out there.
Right,
there?
Yes. And I'll tell you,
and
I
it
tell
shouldn't be
people all the
emotional.
time.
It shouldn't be ego-driven.
No, it should be all numbers.
Yeah.
Just show me. And here again, I think, I coached Babe Ruth baseball over in Noblesville. A few years back, I've coached my grandson's soccer team. I'm all for what Grand Park offers.
Yeah, it's awesome out there.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
But it needs to be managed properly. It needs to be run in a way. And I don't know, hopefully this won't offend anybody, but we need to run it. If we're going to run it, it needs to be self-sustaining, and it needs to be run like a business, not a hobby.
Sure. And I think most people agree with you on that. And I think I agree with you that it shouldn't be a burden.
Right.
I think obviously a city can play the long play, but you got to measure how long that play is.
Right. And when you're growing at, right now, over the past 3 years, the numbers that I saw was that population growth in Westfield has averaged about 5%. So if you look at 5% growth and you extrapolate that out over the next 10 years, we're going to be at somewhere around 61,000 in the next 10 years. Now, that's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And in order to provide the shared services, here again, the fire, the police, the roads, the sewers, that managing the trash with Rays. In order to do that, you need to have estimates laid out of what's it going to cost us to build our shared services to be ready for that growth before it happens. And if we don't have the money, then we need to be able to say, okay, we can't grow at that rate. We've got to figure out how to manage things so that we can stay ahead of the growth. Because if Grand Park is an awesome amenity, but the fire department can't get to your house in enough time to put the fire out, what do you care about Grand Park?
I hope the kids won at soccer.
Right.
My house is gone.
Exactly. If I have a stroke from eating too many donut holes and having too much caffeine.
What you're talking about.
Yeah. I want to make sure that the EMT gets here in enough time to help me.
You don't want to lose resources because of something like that.
Exactly. I want to make sure that if we're going to have both, that we can properly pay for both.
Okay. So I like to do this within an hour.
I'm sorry, are we?
No, you're fine.
Oh yeah, we're just droning on.
We're not. Well, no. I like our discussion. There's a couple things I just want to ask.
Yeah.
I kind of like.
And I'll try to be shorter.
You're fine. This part is kind of like the love it or hate it.
Okay.
I don't know if you love it or hate it.
Okay.
And I know that's hard to answer.
I understand.
It's sticking one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't mind answering these, but
go ahead.
Okay. Grand Park.
Love it.
Grand Junction Plaza.
Hate it. Can I tell you why?
Please.
Real quick.
No, I want to hear it.
Because 2/10 of a mile
no,
away.
you can't explain yourself. No.
2/10 of a mile away from there, we have Asa Bales Park, which is twice the size.
It's beautiful.
And it's a great park. And we used to do Westfield Rocks the Fourth there.
Yeah, that was fun.
So I don't understand why the city needs to own a park when, here again, to me, that particular area is perfect for the kind of what I'll call quaint hometown feel type of development that would give us the same type of thing as the town square in Noblesville or the strip in Zionsville. But here again, that should be private development. And let's build something that, here again, pays homage to the roots of the town. And I'm a big believer in anything west of 31. Let's do some new stuff.
Yeah.
Anything east of 31, let's build some new stuff, but let's make it look old.
So on that, no. Do you love or hate the progress that downtown has made?
Well, I'm when you say progress that downtown has made, can you define that for me?
So the speed at which our downtown has redeveloped in the greatest growth economic times that we've lived through, do you love or hate how it's gone?
Well, I haven't seen anything happen yet.
Okay.
What I've seen is a lot of plans.
To be more?
No, I would expect for there to be more thought put into it, maybe.
Okay.
And that goes back to what we originally talked about with more collaboration. I will tell you that one of the things that has kind of puzzled me is the idea that a group of people have taken 12 years to figure out what to do with 6.8 acres of land, but they built 400 acres of sports campus in a few years. So that kind of, I'm like, where's that? That doesn't all add up to me.
I agree with you on that. I think a lot of people do. The comprehensive plan, love it or hate it? Today's comprehensive plan.
Hate it.
Okay. I'm just kind of looking through a list of
I understand. And while you're looking through your list, I'll just say that anything that's 12 years old
Not children.
No. But anything that any plan that is 12 years old, that you tell me, well, we've got all these addendums. All right, well then let's sit down and let's put everything into a new, updated document and make sure that everything agrees, and let's reevaluate. Did all the stuff that we thought was a good idea 12 years ago, is it still a good idea?
Is it relevant? Yeah.
Right. Relevant, that's a great word.
Yeah. Which I'm not typically. Okay. The social media used by candidates.
Love it.
Okay.
It's communicating. I think people need to communicate.
I think you're right. It's hard though, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, sure it is. Well, a lot of times it's just hard to know, am I writing something that people are going to understand what I mean?
Because it gets lost in translation.
Yeah, and it's hard to say something in a few sentences. I don't know whether you've noticed or not, but I can be a little verbose.
No.
But here again, it's because I want people, I would rather tell you too much than not enough.
I've asked for the abridged version of Don Rainwater.
Yeah, please. Good luck there.
All right.
The abridged version is, here's the bald fat guy, like him or not.
That's awesome. So here's something that's petty that I want to ask you about.
All right.
Do you think if you win the mayor's, if you become the mayor of Westfield, do you think you could actually do our council meetings, I guess not the planning commission, but drive something to make those either on Facebook Live or videoed so that everyone can see them?
Well, I thought they said they are. Well, I keep hearing about the fact that these are they're available, but I have a little trouble. And here again, I'm not technologically savvy or anything.
There's an audio recording.
Yeah,
and I get the.
I think they should be live.
And do you think that could be done simply?
Well, sure. We're doing this, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, we're going to edit the hell out of this.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah, I agree. But I think that.
No, I think it's very easy to do. I mean, if nothing else, in the era of YouTube, I think it's very easy to have a live streaming webcast of not just city council meetings, but that's the whole spirit of the Freedom of Information Act, right? If you want to know, you're supposed to be able to ask and get it. And to me, transparency is, pardon me, let's have this where everybody can see it.
I'm just I don't like the ask to get it anymore. I
agree with you. It should be freely available.
It seems easy, but I probably don't understand really why it's not easy. But
I think you do.
I don't know. Every time.
Let me put it to you this way: if it were easy for people to see what's going on with government, then it would be easy for people to question government. And I think we have, over the last 275 years, we have developed a society that has become numb to the idea that, well, whatever they tell us must be true. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. And so I think that it is easy to get information to the people. I would love to see the mayor's office, whether it be me or the incumbent, do a weekly podcast. Yeah. If I'm elected mayor, I will probably ask you, hey, can we do one of these once a week? Let's talk about whatever's going on. Let people call in and ask questions, and let me answer questions. And they may not like the answer I give them, but at least they'll know that I'm answering it.
You're out there.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I think we're living in a time when if you can't meet people where they are, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I appreciate you doing this with me. I know we barely touch on stuff in an hour.
No, that's all right.
We try to hit a lot of topics. If you've listened to this and Mr. Rainwater's always been very available to meet, to talk. He answers questions. So Tell us how people can get a hold of you.
Oh, well, the easiest way is call me on my cell phone. It's 317-492-3765.
And you got a website?
I do. It's DonaldRainwater.com.
And you got a Facebook page?
I do. That's Rainwater 4, the number 4, Westfield at Facebook.
If you want to see Don Rainwater's videos, they're awesome. So definitely, he just gets on there and says what he wants to say.
I don't pull any punches. Yeah. I probably talk more than I should. I probably am more honest than I should be. Uh-huh. But if you want honesty in government, then I'd really appreciate your vote on November 5th.
Well, good luck, and I like a good contest, and I thank you again for doing this.
Well, I thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow. What's up, Westfield?